Hello, everybody, and welcome Paranormal Nation Radio. Not so normal tonight. How's Denise and Rod?
We're good. Just
Good.
well, like I said
What's up,
during the
Carl?
preview or while we were visiting before, we will probably be muted part of the time. Just make sure that you guys can hear what our guest is talking about because we have a guest
Hey,
tonight.
Nigel.
And so hopefully it won't be so loud because Nolan, our Japanese grandson, gets very loud. So
Turn
he
it down as always.
really enjoys screaming in our ears.
Hey, Anthony.
So
I'll bet.
and throwing things.
Hello to Nigel. Nigel's always the first one in there and shared it to his group page. We appreciate that, Nigel, very much.
How you play that?
So how did you
Anyway,
like last
folks.
night's show? How did you like that?
I like that. We talked about it afterwards. I had some questions and interests and everything. It's actually the first time I'd heard anybody say they talked aliens.
There's
That
a lot
was-
to talk about that.
Yeah, and it's starting to come out a lot more and stuff, and that'll probably be in our conversation with our guest tonight too.
Yeah,
What
you know,
he takes about it.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of other people that are doing that
I
as
thought our
well, and so
Guess
we'll talk
was
about
an
that.
alien.
Oh, on here once.
Yeah,
On here
but we
once.
did
Isn't
have
that
an alien
alien?
on here,
Not paying attention.
So,
right?
but yeah,
But,
I got a lot of
yeah,
feedback.
It was. We had a lot of good comments in there, asking questions and everything. But like I said, it opened a lot of questions up and kind of piqued my interest in one way or another. We'll put it that way, and stuff to look into it further and see what exactly is going on, because it got me the way she said she could go into different files up in those places. I had never heard what you would call a psychic medium or somebody talk spirits ever say, "Oh, my spirit guide or the alien guide or whatever." I asked them a question. I got to go look it up so I can go up into this area. That's a whole new deal. I'd like to learn more about that if that's what's really going on.
Yeah, it sounded like she was processing through Windows processor, or Microsoft Office is how I kind of equated it to in my brain. So,
Mhm.
and when we have the reading that she's going to do, I'm going to ask her if it's okay if I tape it. And maybe it's something that I'll share. I don't know. It just depends on what is said, but I will at least let you know how valid it was for me. Because, as she said, she had spirits that lie to her, things like that.
Right.
What would my spirits do? I don't know. So, but
Well,
April's over on Rumble tonight.
okay.
hey there,
Hey,
April.
April.
So,
So Denise has had lots of different mediums and psychics around her, and so far everyone has said that they can't read her. I mean, that's what they said. They told her that.
I know.
We just can't
I've
get a
heard
reading.
that
So
and stuff, but
I don't know.
yeah, it was a very interesting show, and I'd like to, how would we say, investigate that a little bit more
The live
and
reading.
see
Maybe
what it's all
dissect it?
about.
maybe
Right.
dissect it a little bit and see
Look, it recorded.
what all matches up. Which puzzle
Right.
pieces do we already know, and which ones do we need to know more about? So it'll be interesting. But I asked
Yeah.
Frank Bennett to be on the show tonight because I thought that it'd be nice to have, first off, a friend on the show besides you and Ron. Have another
Right.
friend, and
I'm your
maybe,
friend.
well, sometimes. But it'd be nice to talk to somebody else besides you guys watching us talk about whatever
Besides-
comes up.
Sounds too boring.
Yeah, without me boring you to tears, everybody. So,
Right.
so I'd like to welcome Frank to the show. I don't know about you guys.
Oh yeah, we always welcome Frank to the show.
So, Frank, you were on a show last night. What was the topic on there?
Well, not everything in podcasting goes the way it's supposed to. Like, look who I'm talking to. You put so much effort into wanting to put on a good show that so many people will find interest in, and then at the last moment, your guests can't log on. At the last minute, their internet goes down, or they're doing it by their phone. Why, I never know.
Right.
Or one of your co-hosts got sick, or the kids have to be picked up from daycare. You know how it is. That's how yesterday was. And that poor last night, I mean, she was great. She was fantastic. This show is called Back of the Cereal Box. It's because of a lady who I met in Louisville, Kentucky at a show there a few months back called Kale, who I refer to as cabbage, and or broccoli, depends what kind of mood I'm in. And she told me about the show, wanted me on it, and bam, there I am. And so the poor girl, nobody else was able to log on, not the co-host or anybody else. So this poor girl who knew nothing about me was stuck with me. And I chimed in, at the time I was supposed to, but they didn't tell her. She thought I was never going to log on. And bam, I showed up, and boy, was she happy. But she didn't know who I was. So I saw that, and I decided to make a show out of it. And man, just go onto YouTube and play it back, and you realize that, we really got some good paranormal talk out there. And I really think I filled in some blanks for her, because sometimes it isn't just the host who's running the show. Sometimes the host has to really get the guests to help them to move the topic along, if you dig me.
Right.
For all of us, this thing doesn't stop.
Right.
Oh, I know. And what have I said?
We know.
I said if I'm sick and I just want to sit here and relax, I have Frank on the show, and I just start talking, and then Frank takes over, and I'm fine. As you know, many times when I've been sick.
Oh, Lord. And normally that's a joke, but I do, I love conversation. Anybody will tell you that. But go onto YouTube, and it's called An Encounter with Frank J. Bennett by Back of the Cereal Box podcast. And I chime in at about the 42-minute mark, and we do cover a lot of great topics. Everything from full-bodied apparitions all the way to the Sasquatch. And I really think we left a lot of people very fascinated.
I could see that. I can see that happening. So, because you have a lot of insight into a lot of things. And it's always amazing the things that you share that make people think.
How come I didn't get one of those?
Oh, one of these little kitty things?
It's too complicated, Frank.
You're probably right. I just got a new
adult.
iPhone because for some reason I keep running over my original one with my truck, and it just doesn't like it. And I don't. This thing's twice the size of my old one. It's almost like a laptop. I don't know how to set it up.
We talked about that last night on my show about how technology has changed, and cell phones used to be this big, and then they got down to really small, and now they're getting big like this again. It's amazing. And we talked about how fast technology changed between the middle of World War II to now. And we were talking about that because my job at one point was testing the Jetsons type stuff for Sprint, be first to market and stuff. And so here we are living the Flintstones life, and here's all the stuff that's coming into the future. And that's what I did. So did you notice that same trend? We know it's factual that we went into this third industrial revolution really fast compared to the other two.
Yeah, we're not in an industrial revolution anymore. We're in a tech revolution, and it evolves constantly. And this is part of the reason for the Hollywood actors and writers strike, is the fact that technology moved faster than all of the old contracts and deals they struck a few years back can't keep up with, because now AI is coming in. And where you would think people would want to be doing anything to stop AI is actually helping the big studios take images of actors and other work and stuff like that and repackage it so they can make money off of it over here without violating a contract they made with an actor back then. It's almost slipping out of our fingers. It's moving that fast. It's very slippery.
So part of our talk last night was AI may be a byproduct of alien technology. It was something that was given to us from somewhere else, and that's how it grew so fast.
More than 10 years ago, I ran a story on my webpage, Bible by Bennett, which, of course, as you all don't know, for about the last 20, 25 years, I've been teaching Bible prophecy, and I follow news and events from all over the world looking for what may be Bible prophecy. And I found, look at Bible prophecy as, you drive in down the street and you see people's homes and they got these big lawns. And you see this really big, beautiful lawn. But when you drive by, you only see the green grass. Some things may only be a blade of grass in that lawn, but it's a very important blade of grass, okay? Like a crabgrass, which will eventually affect all the grass around it. That's what this was. A little over 12 years ago, and some of you may remember this, on the TV show Jeopardy, they had a computer go against two of the best players they ever had. And the computer beat them. This computer was named Watson. It's developed by IBM.
Right.
IBM has been working on this for 40 years. And it thinks as fast as a human. And like I said, it beat two of the best Jeopardy champions that there are. And since then, they've only been expanding on its applications and its capabilities. Right now, that system Watson, which is not the only one, that system Watson is being relied on to, and you think Terminator 2 and Skynet when I say this, but right now the Virginia health systems relies on Watson for all access and prescription and diagnosis data, which physicians and hospitals use to make diagnosis with and keep track of treatment with. The system, the whole healthcare system in Virginia actually relies on it instead of humans. And as I said, they're going to continue to expand on its technology. It thinks faster than us and can perform functions faster than we can. AI is a byproduct of it.
Yeah,
Always
that's
just
true.
make you wonder how it came about so quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that it just came out recently because I know better because that's what I do for my job. I've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
So,
In the book of Daniel, it says that all these things that people, and I'm paraphrasing, by the way, for all you Bible people out there that want to shoot me, I'm paraphrasing. But in the book of Daniel, it says that people are going to do all these things because of peace and safety. And that is the excuse today, used verbatim all over the planet, as to why so many things you see being done that don't make any sense have to be done. It's to maintain peace and to maintain safety. It's a matter of safety that we have a real-time diagnosis of a heart patient because they're not here, they're someplace else. It's a matter of peace that we have to have body cams on cops because that maintains communication within the community and stuff like that. And it justifies all manner of government, peace and safety. And that's why AI has enjoyed development like this, is because we're going to find a justification in the name of peace and safety to make it a part of everybody's life in one way or another. What's insulting to me, by the way, is when somebody, like, for example, who was I just talking to? Somebody I've got a service with, they offered me some kind of voice service. Instead of doing this, you can do a voice verification from now on. What we'll do is we'll record your voice and keep it on file and just use it. And I'll say, okay, so let me get this straight. You're going to charge me how much to do something you've been doing to me for the last 7 years anyways? You've been recording and using and keeping my voice on file for years. You want me now to pay for it? I don't think so. And let's not forget, right now, news stories are popping up all over this country where AI is impersonating living people, and the computer is placing automated calls to people, pretending to be these people, trying to confiscate money, or
Right.
get money out of people and force them to do things that are fraudulent. That's happening now at this moment.
They're going to use it for bad stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and thank you, Ron. This is why Ron is here. He's the other balance. Would somebody please show me something good AI is doing?
The only thing I can tell you is it's keeping me in a job. So there's my good. I'm using it to fix bad data.
It'll be used for mostly bad.
Yeah, it will be. It will be used for mostly bad. I will be the exception to the rule.
What we have now.
Hey, Ron, I used to wrestle. There's a way out of that chokehold he had on you there. It's called the tickle pickle.
I'll try that one.
Yeah.
Hi, Tammy.
It's called the tickle bomb. You just lay some bombs in them.
So people who don't know, this is Nolan, our youngest grandson. And he is a little bit older than Clover, our youngest granddaughter. And he was the one that was born in Vegas, and they moved down here. And he is half the reason we moved here. Half.
Okay, what's his name again?
Nolan.
Nolan? I'm not good with names.
Like
now, Nolan, listen to me. I got some advice for you. You're not going to remember any of this, but don't trust anybody over 30.
He's listening and laughing.
And he snickered at the same time.
Nolan, can you see me?
Say hi.
Ooh.
Say hi.
Is that your nose? Oh, it is. Okay, you got one of those too. Cool beans.
His name is Nolan, after Nolan Ryan, and then his middle name is Kershaw.
Oh, we just covered the whole spectrum.
Another baseball player, which we didn't know
who plays for the
We
Dodgers.
quit following baseball after Nolan Ryan retired.
Right.
You wrote it down?
Nolan.
But,
Nolan. Okay.
He throws everything.
But
And he's grandpa's
April
kid.
put this over on Rumble here. In Bible prophecy makes so much more sense to me after reading so many ancient texts. I am almost done reading a book compiled with Zen Garcia called The Great Commission. Are you familiar with that, Frank?
I've heard of it. I've never read it.
I've never heard
Yeah.
of it.
And it's really good. I did that too before I got saved in the 90s. I read about everything I can get my hands on, and all the philosophies, all the religions, all the scientific analysis of planes of existence. I was just doing what everybody else was doing, trying to figure out life itself. And why am I here? And why do I have to keep going day by day, living this sucky existence, doing what everybody else did? And I applaud you. Don't even if you are saved and a Christian, don't be afraid to pick up these other works and look at them and browse them, because in them you're going to find some inspirations that they themselves received from other religions and from other philosophies. Don't be afraid to look at them. It's not unchristian to read the Quran. It's not unchristian to read Christian or anything like that.
No, it gives you an understanding. I mean, if you go back, everything goes back to the what am I trying to say?
Right.
The Old Testament. Almost everything kind of it not overrides, but kind of coincides with it. I did Joseph Campbell class in college, and
Sorry about everything.
and if you ever read Joseph Campbell, you can see he goes into all of the different religions as well, and the hero complex and all that stuff. And I think it's really interesting when you think about it in terms of religion, but also in terms of philosophy.
Yeah, and listen, there's no way to your mind. Expand it any way you can, except for drugs. That's a diversion. You'll end up in the same place when you come down.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. But when I was younger, I inhaled books. I just inhaled them. Wherever my mind went, I sat in the library and just read and read and read. And that's why I always refer to having a head full of useless knowledge, because quite honestly, I never had to use this anyplace else. Oh, but I will say, after having been saved, it did give me light and continuity. In other words, I was kind of able to reflect back on everything I've studied and say, I can understand how that happened. I can understand why they would do that. I can understand how they ended up there and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, I've talked to you all before about the writing process. I've got 5 books in the works right now, and I'm really impressed with these authors that can sit down and bang out one book and nothing else, and then move on to the next book. I wish I could do that, but I'm not made that way. I have what's referred to as an 8-track mind, and I'm thinking of about 8 things at the exact same time. And there's a part of me sitting back going, nah, no good. I'll pick that one. And for the last month, my mind has been on fire about a book I started 6 months ago, and it's about the life of Adam, the first man. And I'm extracting the book of Genesis extremely heavy for this, but I'm actually doing a dramatization of what I believe Adam's life was and the people in it, and what happened to Adam after the fall. How he, because, this is the man that witnessed all creation, and how he went through his days after God had disavowed. So that's what I'm working on now. As a matter of fact, before I went outside to go to work, extracting from Scripture, I created a graph tracing the timelines of Adam, Eve, and all the other characters who would have lived in Scripture during his lifetime. Because it's really important to have character continuity in the book. Who's young, who's old, and by what standards. It's when you do a dramatization based on characters, it's really important to have that. And this is, of course,
true, it is.
It's heavily relying on my study of Scripture and the book of Genesis, nothing else.
Now, are you going directly? Okay, you're going through the Bible and stuff. Are you going through the King James Version or other older?
I only use the King James Version. The 1611 King James Version is the only one I will use. And I am always fascinated how I belong to a religion that has one Savior, one God, but over 232 versions of the same book. Yeah. So, you want to talk about diversions. Some people need this. Right? There's people that can't handle the original book. I get that. It's just like why somebody would be in Catholicism and not an easier religion. Well, some people need that structure. Some people don't. And some people learn better that way. I'm going to look you straight in the eye and tell you, you don't need a Bible at all to get where you're going.
No.
You need it, God will give it to you. You need it bad enough, He'll give it to you. But while it's here, that's what I prefer to use, and I've had success with it.
I do find it interesting how many versions of the Bible there are, and you can read it in one, and it sometimes says almost the opposite in another.
I want to point out thank you. That opens up my next question. My next point is that there's key verses I use when I teach about Scripture. One of which deals with Bible prophecy, and it's probably one of the most ardent or angry of the prophecies, is where Jesus is talking at the right before he is led off to be crucified. He's talking to his disciples. It's the book of Luke, chapter 36, and he's talking about the prophecies that will come to pass before he returns again. And he commands his disciples, watch you therefore and pray always that you may be worthy to escape all of these things that shall come to pass and to stand before the Son of Man. Now, in the New King James Version and many other versions, the word escape is removed, and the word worthy or maybe or able is put in its place. That right there, speaking from a literature standpoint, one word changes the entire meaning of a paragraph.
Yeah, because it's not saying you will.
It changes it from a qualifier to maybe an adverb, and that changes the entire meaning of the text right there. It gives somebody the impression, well, you don't have to do what the Bible says to do. Just be a good person and do good things, and judgment won't come upon you. But in the original version, in the King James and in the Greek, the word escape is used. Worthy to escape. That's one plain example I always point out where a difference between the Bibles could mean life and death.
Yeah. And I've noticed that in quite a some are hellfire and brimstone, and some are, flowers and bumblebees, and I don't know if people, if you get to choose your Bible, which one do you want? Do you want the one that's hellfire and brimstone, or do you want the one that's, flowery?
Yeah. And so, some people this is why Joel Osteen is so popular. Some people have what Scripture refers to as itching ears, and are, as also Scripture says, unable to endure sound doctrine, and just want to hear pleasantries.
Why?
Hey, and just want to hear pleasant things.
Yeah.
That's where you'll get it.
Yeah, I think I told you all a long time ago when I lived in Virginia, my wife and I went church shopping, and that's an eye-opener. Looking for a church that we could hang with and stay with. There's one we walked into, and all they did was sing. They had a little band on stage. All they did was sing their own versions of hymns throughout the entire service, and there's this really weird feeling and vibe from all of them. And we just kind of snuck out the door. There was no teaching or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no good.
Just music. That's it.
Yeah, I've seen those.
So April says, well, we could talk about how they chose the 66 books and left out so many other books.
Oh, yeah, I get that question at Comic-Cons and paranormal shows all the time. I'm surprised how many people are pissed off about that. They think...
I don't think it's right.
Be in there, and the Gospel of Thomas, and apparently there's a Gospel from Mary that I didn't know about until recent times. But it goes back to the 3300s AD, and this is when Emperor Constantine took over Rome, and Emperor Constantine was converted to Christianity, and he assembled a council in a city called Nicaea in Italy in the 330s AD. And it was their job to sit there and take all of these books that were out there and all of these other texts that were floating around from all around the Roman Empire and bring them all together. And that council had to go through all of them and determine which ones should be in this Bible and which ones should not. And if anybody out there loves to read, I mean, my wife inhales books. I mean, just inhales them. One of these days, she's going to leave me for her Kindle tablet. Mm-hmm. I know that for a fact. If you're a reader, if you teach literature, teach writing, you understand the continuity of a story. You can understand where something is inserted and it doesn't really jive with another area of a text and stuff like that. That's kind of what their criteria was. And this is how we ended up with an extraction of 66 books. There were thousands of submissions that were casted aside.
So that I guess basically they were aware of flip-flops back then.
Well, yeah. I posted recently how somebody misinterpreted a quote that I made describing the Aberdeen wild man, the primary character of my first book. And somehow they did up this artwork where it's a gorilla wearing a dress and wearing slacks. So I had to go. That's why I created some new artwork, is to kind of like put the truth out there. But that's how quick it can happen and how easy it can happen. Just mishearing.
Yeah, that's not even close to what I read in your book.
No. I put new artwork. I did it 2-3 weekends ago just to kind of put it out there and correct it before it got out of control. Because the next thing you know, there's going to be a TV show of a bunch of people going out looking for this chick in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay in the marshes, wearing a dress and heels, called the Aberdeen Wild Man.
Well, they're going to be they'll be running with its heels on and break one, and then we're back to every horror movie ever created.
It's that easy to go off the path. Just simply mishear something, misinterpret a foreign word. A lot of people didn't speak Latin, so they didn't get the Bible in the early days when they did have access to it. I mean, just misinterpreting one little thing can really make a huge difference.
And Barbara, that's true. There is a huge misconception in the paranormal of the paranormal community, and one of those is a demonologist. A demonologist is actually devil worshiping, when no, they're teaching people about what the devil can do so that you can protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's it in a nutshell. So, and I know way too many true demonologists to discount that. And if everything's evil, then don't watch the news, people.
Hey, you guys are okay with me doing coke during the show, right?
Yeah. As long as you're wearing pants. As long as you're wearing pants, you can do coke.
Oh,
yeah. Barb brought that up because one of the listeners accused me of being a devil worshiper by using the echo box and all that. Oh, yeah.
Well,
I won't say who it is, but
talking about that, some people see divination as the devil's workshop kind of stuff, that you don't know truly who you're talking to, and that kind of stuff. And Frank, what are your thoughts on divination?
She used the word evil, and I like that because it wraps up in a neat little package everything I've been saying. Does anybody know what the word evil even means? Everybody tosses it around so fluently, but I swear to you, nobody knows what exactly it means.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing most of us say is it's something really bad.
It's in our modern language, it's supposed to be something bad. Mm-hmm. In its origins in the ancient Hebrew, it's the Hebrew word uwach, E-W-A-C-H, and it's just such a subtle thing. It's a verb that means moving away from God, or away from God. That's it. So I'm just simply, if I'm doing anything that does not have me looking at or consulting God or referencing God, and I'm turned away from him and I'm going away from him towards something else, I'm being evil. It's both a verb and an adverb at the same time.
Right.
It's that subtle of a thing.
And we make it to where it's the worst thing ever.
Exactly.
And as far as going away from God, that is one of the worst things ever. You're opening yourself up for something that you may or may not be prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also look at it, you're also trying to get closer to God to find out exactly what you believe that's going to happen after you pass away.
Now this is why so many people love me. It's because they know I'm Christian. I'd never change my tune. I say the same things no matter where you find me. But listen, if you want to be a Muslim and follow something else, or if you think there's another kind of God out there for you and you want to follow it, knock yourself out. I mean, this is your life. You find what makes you happy. Don't expect me to agree with you. And I'm not going to expect you to agree with me. But, this is your life. You're responsible for it. Do what you think is best for you. I'm just sitting here telling you that in my religion, being a Christian man, this is how God relates in my life and what my relationship is with this subject. So that's why everybody loves me, because I let them be them.
That's the way it should be.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the reason
loud guys like this one.
Let him be himself.
Yeah. And people got to learn for themselves. I was raised, we all know that. And quite honestly, they had me tuned out by the time I was 16. I wasn't even listening anymore, but just going through the motions. And I drifted for a very long time without a religion or a grounding. And, like you all know, in the mid 90s, I finally got saved, and that changed everything. But that's me. Everybody else is out there walking a different path and going their own path to find their salvation and what matters to them.
That's because that is a very personal path.
Mhm.
It's a unique path for every person.
Wow. That's a pretty cool thing you had there. What was that, man?
It's a pot.
The bowl.
Somebody gave you a bowl? No, that's a pot, man.
Yeah, it's a pot.
Oh, good.
It's
That's-
not legal here.
That's the pot you got there.
Yeah, pot's not legal here.
Bye.
No, but Coke is very popular with many people.
But
No, but I at the show in Louisville, Kentucky, I had a gay couple come up to me, and they didn't notice it
night,
immediately.
Nigel.
I was sitting at the table with my wife, and I had on the black jacket with the white silk tie, and it's not easy to notice until you walk up on me, but I got a little tie clip with a cross on it, and it's the only cross I own. I don't have crosses. Mostly because when I was in demolition, if you wore jewelry, you're screwed. And so I don't have a lot of jewelry. But he walked up to my table, started looking at my books, and the one man saw my tie clip, and immediately he got kind of defensive, and he felt like he had to explain himself. And he was so uncomfortable. His partner was different. He was very quiet and didn't say much and smiled a lot. And I was interested in talking to him because he was a meteorologist, and I wanted to hear his interpretation of how it's possible that a spirit could manifest in a physical fashion or have some physicality in our physical world. I wanted to know his interpretation of it. He has some pretty cool insights as a meteorologist, I got to say. But, they learned to calm down with me after a little bit because, we're talking business. And I had no problem with them. And after they figured out that I really got no judgment or problem with them, both of them, the conversation was better. They were free. We've got one judge. Be a judge. There's somebody else is going to do the judging.
Yep.
Somebody else have that job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
not
have
our
time
job.
for the judging part. I just don't. And
Not our
as
job
long
anyway.
and as long as you're not having sex in front of me or in public, I don't care what you do. Just don't make me watch.
This is why every place I travel, I have support, because if somebody is going to break down and do some sex acts in front of me, I'm going to rate it.
You go see what he's doing.
You got to admit, you got to give higher scores for the athletic stuff.
Yeah. So, and we've been talking about the Bible and Christianity and everything, and we know you go to paracons and all this stuff. Have you ever been on a paranormal investigation?
No. Now, as a joke, I did it some years back before I even wrote the book when I was living up in New York. But that was just because my wife and I were in this haunted castle, and we were chaperoning an all-girl scout troop. They all wanted to go on a ghost hunt. I don't ghost hunt, but for them, they needed to be chaperoned, so I went on it with them anyways, just to make sure somebody did not fall down a flight of stone steps or down a well. That was the only one I've ever been on. I don't ghost hunt. I got enough problems.
Why do you say that?
Well, time and time again, not only because I lived this, and after I got saved, I finally realized what I had been doing all this time. I finally realized that not only had I been what you would call a little evil away from God and doing everything away from God and doing things just really to offend him, But I also realized all my spirit attachments I had accumulated over the years. I had realized that I had been carrying spirits with me a long time, and I had gotten along with them. I had learned to ignore the voices. I had learned to kind of maybe ignore the images they kept giving me and the intonations and pushing me to do things. I had kind of gotten comfortable with it and kind of half ignored it. When I got saved and they were all just kind of washed off my back, I finally got to see what I was going through up to that point. And I realized if I went back and actually looked for it, I would find it again.
That's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm always astonished what people are used to. You can get so used to a level of suffering, it becomes second nature to you. And all of a sudden, you're not suffering. This is status quo. And it's kind of like you went to a concert, a loud one, and as soon as you as soon as you leave or get in the car, there's all this quiet, and it takes a while for you to kind of get back to normal and settle back in that quiet place of yours. It's like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was for me.
Yeah. After a concert, it usually takes a while for my feet to not feel it anymore. And people are like, "What?"
Yeah.
The bass is so bad. So it's a similar thing, like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You feel it. You feel it a lot longer than when you're just there.
Yeah. On a spiritual level, it's different, though. And this is why in the book I make such a big point about how what hinders all paranormal investigations, regardless if it's spirits or Sasquatch, alien UFOs, doesn't matter. What hinders them all is the fact that people doing this have absolutely no concept of what a spirit is. And much worse than that, they don't even have a concept of their own spirit. They're hunting for something that they themselves have and have no idea of its character or makeup. So of course it's going to be nothing but questions, because you never understand. The answers have been in you the whole time, and you never felt to look for it. Nobody understands their own spirit. The spirits they hunt do. Just as a cat knows how to communicate with a cat and a dog knows how to communicate with a dog, spirits can read spirits. They can read your own spirit. And everything about you is in your spirit. Everything. And if there's a button to be pushed, they know it.
April asks, "Did you do a deliverance prayer?"
No.
Is there any value in that?
Oh, of course. The Lord, believe it or not, he chooses to listen. Go through your scriptures and you'll find time and time again, he turns his face from this person. He turns his back on that person. I shall turn my face to Israel. I shall not do this. I shall listen. If they call on me, I shall hear. He does that all the time. He chooses when to listen. If you take him, he just won't stop listening for a while. Then you have to do extra kinds of prayers to get his attention. And when he listens, and he may not answer you directly. That's a kind of a test of your mettle and your patience, because he's been patient with you. You might as well be patient with him. And, if you want your prayer to be answered, expect for it to be answered in a way you didn't think it was going to be answered. You think you know what you want, and you think you know what you need, but he made you. He knows exactly what you want, what you have to have. He knows exactly what you need. Not everybody needs to be rich, but most people do need to suffer less.
I agree.
I mean, they're making it harder and harder to enjoy the rich, by the way.
April says when she got saved, it was crazy quiet for her. It scared her, the quiet that is.
Yeah, she's a stranger in a strange land. And it takes a while for you to kind of get your bearings. Yeah. And good question is, after you get saved, what then? And that's that quiet space. Because nobody's filling it in for you. What then? Excuse me, fur ball. So I'm hacking up a fur ball. It's my turn to watch the cats today.
So for you,
It's killing me.
After you were saved, your quiet time, what did your quiet time reveal to you?
Well, in the book, in the book Encounter with the Aberdeen Wild Man, I do record my salvation experience because it's important for everybody to know what I suffered with leading up to it. Ever since I was a kid, all the spirit attachments I had, the strange creatures, the dark entities, and all the bizarre stuff. And the fact that I had studied the Bible completely through more than 11 times. And there I am sitting in my condo studying it for the 12th time. Because I'm an intelligent guy. I kind of think to myself, it's just a book. If you read it enough, you'll get it. I never got it. I could never understand it. And, the salvation experience is described in the book, but when I finally did get saved, I was able to understand the book. It was the only thing I wanted. It was the only thing I needed. I got it. And then after that, I was just immersed in it. Now I can read it and I can actually understand why there are only 66 books. I can understand one book and its relation to another book, one book in the Old Testament and why it's in relation to another book in the New Testament. I got all that now. It was just so fluent for me. And now also I've got the continuity. But you see, and this is why I love still going to the shows. I love going to speak. I love signing books for people because the best compliment an author ever gets that I get all the time is that they write back to me and they say, I read your book and I can hear your voice when I'm reading it. Oh, I cannot tell you how much that pleases me because I write the way I talk. And I also get, when I get a chance to say this, because I do get questions about scripture when I'm teaching about the paranormal, is that the reason why I was able now to understand the Bible so fluently is because after I got saved, I finally got to meet the author. And I can hear his voice now when I read the book.
Good. We have a question here from one of our listeners and hosts on our network. Do you believe people can have a relationship with God and not go to church?
Oh, yes.
Read the Bible?
Oh, absolutely. Got to ask yourself what to do before they came out with the Bible. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing of the Word of God. That's it. That's all of it. And even Jesus said in the book of Mark that it is better for you to go into your closet and pray to the Lord and speak to the Lord than be as the hypocrite and go to the tabernacle or go to the temple and be as the hypocrite. I mean,
Right.
you can find God and commune with God on your own space. The word church, incidentally, means people. If where two or three are together in my name, there I shall be also. That's what Jesus said to his disciples. So if two or three people come together, there's your church.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of it is just brick and mortar. Excuse me.
Exactly. It's all dependent. It's all your relationship with God and the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and this is
it
why I
doesn't
keep
have to be in a church.
This is why it bothers me with all the church talk from so many people I meet, is that, you're relying so much on your church. When you came into this world, you didn't have a church. When you came into this world, you didn't have a religion, and nobody was holding your hand. Revisit that and find the Lord that way. Because
the thing is if you can't find the Lord in your everyday things, you're not going to find him in church.
No, you're not.
That's just a fact. If it's just the way that it is. I've never been saved. I've never been baptized. None of that stuff. But that doesn't make me any less of a Christian than anyone else.
No.
I mean, yeah.
As long as you got the belief and the faith.
And I do. I mean, I have to.
Okay,
I
well,
have to have faith.
if somebody's looking to be saved, there's a very simple question that must be answered. Who is Jesus?
It's supposed to be just a man, just like everybody else.
For anybody who thinks or believes or speaks that Jesus is not the only begotten Son of God, whose name we call upon and know that we are saved, they're really not saved. They're you can walk as a Christian, talk as a Christian, but many people shall be saved by hellfire. Those are Jesus's words, by the way, and that applies to people who walk and talk in the faith, but were never saved. They had never had their sins washed from them by His shed blood. Those people are not saved, and that absolutely must be done before you can be saved, just as it was done for me.
So one of the things that I've noticed, you said hellfire, that people will be saved by hellfire. Not that they'll actually be saved, but no, that will prompt them to want to be saved. I noticed that more people find Jesus and God in jail and ERs than anywhere else.
Or they seem to.
They seem to, at least for a short period of time.
So some people are more heavy on the Jesus than the God. Okay. But and that'll put me in a position to judge, and I'm just not going to do it. And I'll look at you and I'll watch how you're doing it, and if you ask me, I'll answer. But I'm not going to tell you you're doing it wrong. That's just not my thing. Let somebody else do that. My thing is to let you find your way. The Lord, the reason why so many bad things happen in your life isn't just because the world sucks and life sucks. As it was for me, I had to go through a heck of a lot of suffering to be broken down to a point where the only thing left for me is to ask the Lord to save me. I mean, I was with a very strong mind. I had to be broken down. And if a lot of people going through a lot of stuff out there, this is where we get the analogy of the master and the clay. You are the clay, and He is the master. He's got to mold you and make you. But in order to make pottery, you have to first break the clay, and then remold it. You got to let yourself be broke and be remolded. End of story. And I can't put it more plain than that. If thank God I was not stronger. If I had a stronger will, I would have just kept doing what I was doing and never been saved. Because I walked around doing things, and I justified everything I did because I never hurt anybody. That was my justification. You do anything you want, just don't hurt anybody. Doesn't matter what it is. Well, I was wrong. And that's because that was all happening up here. My spirit had a different idea. The very thing I had always neglected had a different idea. And that is what caused me to be saved, not what I had up here.
Right.
You got them quiet. This is good.
Okay. But okay.
Very
Okay,
quiet.
so you teach the Bible courses and all this and that. So, what is your opinion on when we die and go to heaven? Are we allowed to come back, or what spirits are allowed, and what's going on?
To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, and that's in in Thessalonians. And that means as soon as you're released from the body, if you are in the Lord or of the Lord, you're immediately in His presence. End of story. Now, those who are not in the Lord, now we have a problem. Because as I describe in the first book, death is an unnatural act. The Lord did not create death. It was never part of the original plan. All of us were designed to live in perpetuity in our bodies and never to have sickness or disease or anything like that. That was the original design. Adam allows sin to enter into the world in the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 4, and that alters everything the Lord created. Everything. the plants, the animals, the trees, everything. Now things can begin to grow old, decay, and die. So now you need a new plan as to what to do with the soul and the spirit once it's released from the body. Now, before Jesus came along and died on the cross, providing those who are of the Lord to be in the presence of God when they die, there had to be hell. And first references to hell you'll find in the book of Exodus. And there is both a good side of the hell and a torment side of hell. In the book of Luke chapter 16 is the story of the beggar and the rich man. The beggar always gave everything he had and was very devoted to the Lord. The rich man only fed himself. Both die one day. And the rich man finds himself in the torment side of hell. And there was a small gulf or barrier that separated the good side of hell from the torment side of hell. And he's looking, he could see Lazarus, the beggar who had died. And he's being comforted in the arms of Abraham, from one of the old patriarchs out of the book of Genesis, in the comfort side of hell. And he asks if he could be comforted, if only Lazarus would do something for him. And Abraham says no. But then he does something interesting. The rich man says, would you please send Lazarus to go to my family and my brethren and tell them of this terrible place so they do not come here? And Abraham says that you had the prophets. Let them hear them. And so until Jesus came along, everybody went to hell, a good side and bad side. Now, this is where we have something called Pentecost. When Jesus died, it said in the book of James, he spent 3 days in the earth and he preached unto the dead. This is the dead in the comfort side of hell. And this is everybody from Adam all the way up unto, and by the way, I'm speculating it's Adam. I don't have a cause to say that. Adam all the way up until John the Baptist, who had just recently been executed. Everybody. He's preaching to Moses. He's preaching to Abraham. He's preaching to John the Baptist. And they get to know the Lord. And on the day of Pentecost, they all evacuate that side of hell and go to be with God in heaven. So that means that only the torment side of hell remains. The spirits of those who pass and are not of the Lord still go into hell. And I'm sorry if I'm being long, but this is how I know to say this. In the book of Revelation, chapter 19, is the two last references to hell. It says in Revelation 19 that hell hath enlarged herself to receive the dead that's coming in upon her. It's referred to as her, by the way, because it's a thing. It's something created by God spiritually to hold in place the wicked spirits or the spirits not of the Father. Hell is destroyed at the end of the book of Revelation, chapter 19, when there's no more use for it. It is a temporary place for the dead who are not of the Lord. Now, the reason why we see spirits is another story. We cannot accept in face value that because you see somebody familiar to you, that it's that person. The spirits can impersonate the living and the dead. That took place in the book of Saul, chapter 1. I'm going to stop talking and let you guys get in here, because I did that whole
fine.
No, you're doing
No,
good.
we've actually heard that before. Investigating, we've heard other people's voices that were there investigating. They were nowhere near that spot.
Well, what about the example on Ghost Adventures?
Oh, yeah.
My voice came through on Ghost Adventures at Pike Mansion. And we were not there. We were in another part of Illinois about 150 miles away.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. So, and I mean, if you go into listening to that episode where they're playing the EVPs, it's my voice. There is no doubt. I was sitting looking at my computer and working on something, and he's listening, he's watching the TV. All I can do is hear it, because I get irritated with all that stuff. And so, and I look back at him and I go, that's my voice. I said, what are you watching that's my voice.
That's sobering.
So
To hear
it,
yourself imitated by something that's not living is a sobering thing.
it is. It was very
Exactly.
strange. So
Now, I
Renee
would like
asked,
to, if I may, I need to separate that from the soul. Scripturally speaking, the soul is not a thing; it's a state. In the book of Genesis, chapter 2, the Lord formed Adam from the dust on the ground. And again, it's the master modeling the clay, molding the clay. He breathes the breath of life into the nostrils of Adam. And I would like for everybody to go to the book of Genesis and look at this. Adam becomes a living soul. Now, what is death? Reverse the process. Take away the breath of life. The body begins to decay back into dust and fade away. There is no longer a soul. The soul is a state of being as life. It's a marriage of the spirit and the body. And I do realize Scripture makes so many references to the soul past that, but it's really not the same thing. It's a frame of reference to people who are living in a certain state. That's all it is. People make more out of it than they should, I think.
so
In the book, as a matter of fact, in the book of Revelation, chapter 19, it says, "The souls of those left who remain did not live again until all these things are fulfilled." A spirit by itself cannot have life. A spirit with a physical body or a soul, or what makes soul can. I hope that's not too confusing, but there's a separation between body, spirit,
No,
soul.
it's not.
actually, Frank, when you explain this, it's so much easier to understand. Because
It is.
during a sermon, you can't raise your hand and go, "What in the hell did you just say?" You can't say that. But
No, I don't.
Renee asks if
The
you
Book of
believe
Enoch,
in the
yeah.
Book of Enoch.
No, thank you. It's I only read it once. I'm not going to sit here and claim to remember all of it, but it confused me. And as a matter of fact, it kind of ties into the book about the life of Adam, or the days of Adam, that I'm working on now. Is that books were not written back in the days of Enoch. If by the way, let me clear up something else. The only reason why we have the Bible at all is because of Moses. Everything you see from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1, all the way through the first 5 books is all directly translated verbally by Moses. He's sitting there in council in the middle of the desert, Sinai, relating all of this to his scribes, who are writing down everything he's saying in sequence, and that created what we call today the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. And that little book is what you see Jews, Hasidic Jews and traditional Jews, wearing in a little box on their foreheads. Is this little book, the first 5 books of the Bible. It's also the same set of books that Jesus was reading from when he was a child in the temple. Amazing, all the other elders there. The first 5 books of the Bible, called the Pentateuch, described directly from Moses. Enoch lived long before Moses, long before, and his traditions were not carried through. And that it didn't take me long to get through the book of Enoch before I realized if there was any substance to it, Moses would have said something of it, and he did not. But they weren't writing books in the days of Enoch.
Is there any mention of Enoch in the Bible anywhere?
Oh, absolutely. The book of Genesis, chapter 6 through 8. And this leads right shortly before the Great Flood. And you got to remember that the Great Flood in the book of Genesis, excuse me, I said chapter 8. I didn't mean that. I mean 5 and 6. Right up until chapter 6, when the Great Flood takes place, it wipes out all things before that. Everything. Anything you'd be looking for was wiped away. And this is also what happened to the dinosaurs. They were all wiped away by the Great Flood, because Scripture does say that there were giants in the earth in those days. It's not being specific, and it doesn't need to. But
And that's what I've heard before too. That
Yeah.
the dinosaurs were here until the Great Flood. And
yeah, it
stuff.
changed all things. And
Right.
I got into this conversation with somebody at another show because he read the book of Genesis chapter 6 and just assumed, like so many other people, that it rained so hard. That's you got to read a little more closely, because that was not the only place the water came from. It actually came up from inside the earth as well, from up underneath.
Hmm.
So that upended basically the level plane of whatever strata we had at that time. So if you're looking for landmarks and references from Genesis, good luck. It's probably hundreds of miles from where it used to be. And this is also why they're finding so many fossils in clusters. Because we see today all these floods. It picks up all this debris, carries it along, and has a resting place or an eddy pool where it just at. Take away the water, there's all the debris in one place from that area.
That's been happening here with the with the tides and stuff. Just right after we moved here, they found a Civil War or pre-Civil War sword down in Pensacola, and people are at Pensacola all the time, and it was just right there in the sand, not 5 feet off the shore.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You put me in mind of when I took a trip with my wife out to Washington State to do a conference. The West Coast is gorgeous, guys. Go do it. There was out in Washington State, there's something called Cannon Beach. And the reason why it's called Cannon Beach is because there was a shipwreck off the coast 100-something years ago. And these really large cannons went down with the ship. Over the course of years, these really big cannons have been washing up the shore. We're talking things that weigh many, many, many tons.
Mm-hmm.
But the tides brought it up onto the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's just fascinating to think about that.
It is. I mean,
Oh, I know.
These people who found it thought that they got to keep the sword, and it's like, no, it belongs to the state of Florida. Because anything like that you find, if they hadn't posted it on Facebook for people to see it, they probably could have walked away with the darn thing.
I would have. Oh, shoot, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have posted it.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
No, I wouldn't have either. But
yeah, but I do get people who are like, going back to that original point. If you miss one little word or misread or didn't hear one little word, it'll change the meaning of an entire text. And Book of Genesis just like that. And I'm very careful in my studies, but this particular gentleman of this one show just missed one itty bitty little piece of a phrase, and that when I traveled with the Bible, I actually showed it to him, and then he went, "Oh, water came from other places. Oh, well, now that makes a little sense. Okay."
So when you were talking about giants, I've heard other shows where they've talked about giants, and they refer to the giants as just people.
Yeah.
There were just giant people. I've never heard anybody say, hey, it might be the Brontosaurus and the T-Rex and all these other things. They only attributed that to people.
Well, at the end of the book of Genesis, chapter 5, it's right at about the time Noah is going to be born. And it mentions that there were, right before it mentions there were giants in the earth in those days. Preceding that, for about a quarter of a chapter, it talks about how the daughters of men, the angels of God, saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they mated with them. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact wording. And they mated with them and created many, many, many men of renown and men of great feats and stuff like that. But the assumption is that they only mated with humans. Spirits, as we have, and this goes in when I went into the book, it's part about lycanthropy. Spirits can also mate with other living things and alter its nature. It can make it turn. It can actually turn it into something it was not created to be. Something larger, more grotesque, perhaps.
You mean like Nephilim?
Yes. Yeah. The definition of the word Nephilim, quite honestly, is fallen, Flaen, in the how the Hebrew term for it. I'm trying to remember the Hebrew term; it's not coming to mind. But it really translates fallen, as in fallen from heaven. And there's only one class of people ever described as fallen, and those are the angels that were kicked out of heaven after the revolt by Satan, by Lucifer. So the fallen had fathered or parented other species of mankind and animal kind shortly before the flood. And by the way, when I say shortly, I'm meaning like maybe 1,000-year reign, 2,000-3,000 years, because people lived very long lifespans back then.
Mm-hmm. They did.
And I noticed that the further you go down the book of Genesis, people were having children at an earlier and earlier age. The Lord had already started shortening the lifespan.
So when do you think your book on Adam is going to be?
Well, that depends on how far I get. And here's the problem with being a writer. And as I said from the head of the program, I really wish I was one of those writers that could sit down with one book, bang it out, publish, next book. But I'm not. My mind will fire and get interested in what it wants to when it wants to. I'll bang out 3 chapters in a book, and then I'll get interested in this one and work on that one for a while. I started the book Spirit Field more than a year ago, and I'm still working on pieces of it when I get inspired about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got another book I've been working on for 10 years.
Yeah, I stopped asking about that one.
Yeah. Well, it's being a writer is a fickle thing, And I swear to you, I got to tell you, this is amazing to me. I'm amazed how many places I go, how many people I talk to, celebrities. Thank you. And everybody wants to know how to be an author, how to publish a book. And I really feel like they're treating me like I'm somebody who discovered this great secret. Please tell us your secret. How did you write a book and get it published? By the way, I teach a class on that. But how do you write a book and get it published?
Well, the big thing, Frank, is that you're approachable. People feel okay to ask you questions.
I shower.
Well, it helps. But, what got us to talk? I heard you talk, and I turned around and told Ron, I said, he's from Baltimore, and off I went. And from there, we've been fast friends. So it's just, the way that it is. You're just approachable. You're easy to talk to. And you'll answer the question, whether you think it's a valid question or not. It's a valid question, and you'll answer it.
I don't think there's such a thing as a dumb question.
I think that here's what I think. I think this is what my philosophy is. And it says, used to say it on my email, there are no dumb questions, just dumb people with questions.
Now, to be fair, when I speak to groups and I open it up to questions, I said, ask me anything you want. There's no such thing as a dumb question.
No.
Fire away. And somebody will ask me something, go, stupidest question I ever heard.
Never fails.
Yep. If you don't have a sense of humor in anything, you're screwed anyway.
Oh yeah.
So,
you gotta get through life with a sense of humor. Damn, it's the only one you're getting.
Oh, I know. So
yeah.
So I'm going to ask you some other questions, and these are questions I've asked you before, but we always have a different audience all the time. And now
I've had a lot of blows to the head, demolition a long time, so I don't remember any of them.
Well, we're on Rumble now, so that's a whole different audience. So it's always good to ask those questions. And we can't see their questions unless Carl is sharing them with us. But
yeah,
how did you decide to write that very first book?
I didn't. I was compelled to. And it took me about 5 years to write it, because once I had decided I was clean. After I was saved, I was finally free, clean. It was all gone. All the voices, all the images, all the horrific visions I was having, the feeling of weight, the voices, it was all gone. And I was afraid to go back and revisit it. I didn't want it to come back. Um, before I got saved, I felt like I just had this big weight around my neck pulling me down. And then when I got saved, it was gone. And I just didn't want to go back there. And then when I noticed around about 1999 and stuff, the paranormal was really getting hot again. And I was watching and listening to what people were talking about and doing. There's a part of me that went, well, no, that's not how it was for me. That's not, I don't think that's right. And so I started to kind of let myself remember and revisit. And as I said before, time and again, thank God for YouTube. People were posting their evidence on YouTube. Paranormal, but Sasquatch, alien UFOs, you name it, all cryptid, all that stuff. And I watched a lot of them, thousands, and I just saw where I had to get in and get my story out. And it took years. And I started collecting small scraps of information, little things I remember I wrote out and put away. Excuse me. And then I had to do lake research and go visit a lot of places because I needed to do research into facts and figures and stuff like that, you know. And it just took a long time to compile everything into a book, you know. And you know, if you do not, as an author, writing about your own personal accounts, laugh, cry, and feel satisfaction during the course of it, you didn't write a good book. You have to be in the book. Your heart and soul has to be in what you wrote. You see,
Right?
It does. I mean, if not, it's not you. I mean,
anybody could have wrote it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and if that's the case, then you're just a ghostwriter, and who gives a crap? There's none of your soul is in there, then who's going to want to read it?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I've been asked to write other people's books for them, and I told them, sure, I'll do it, but I don't know how to spell.
You know,
That's a good way to do it.
My biggest problem writing is that this is really cool. And there are a lot of guys who will relate to this, but I had no idea I had dyslexia all my life until I wrote the book. Because you write out things and you type out things and you go to read it back and it's Swedish. I wrote the first book literally one sentence at a time because I would type out the sentence and go back and look at it, and I didn't understand what the heck I just wrote. It's like in a foreign language. So I had to keep backing over it and rewriting each sentence. Because to me, immediately in my eye, it looked good, but reading it back, it was totally different. I did not know I had dyslexia until I wrote the first book.
I've known I've had dyslexia since I was in kindergarten. And I have to read things sometimes 3 times before sometimes it makes sense. But if you write down gobbledygook, I'm probably going to be the first one to get it on the first read. You know?
Yeah.
Because it makes sense when it's like that.
Yeah, and like I said, I have so many people asking me how to be a writer and how to be published. I mean, it's got to be about you. If the story is about you in any way, shape, or form, or your experiences, you have to be in the book for better or for worse, like it or not. I mean, not only did you have a paranormal experience, there are, in addition to your standard 5 senses, there are other senses about you that come into play when you encounter, say, a full-bodied apparition or, say, a Sasquatch. Nobody accounts for fear. Size is an extremely intimidating thing. And time again, when I studied people's actual encounters close up with a Sasquatch, they were terrified by the size of it and the presence of it. You see, that's something that's got to be translated in the book. They got to feel the fear. And Russell and Maggie up in Erie, Pennsylvania, who have been going through a lot. When I first met Russell, at a show on Western Ohio, its name went right out of my head. He took me aside because he had read the book, and he said, the part about your book that really spoke to me is where you were first describing encountering the Aberdeen wild man, but you sensed it before you even saw it, and you had You could see things, but you couldn't hear things, and there's all this other strange stuff you were going through before you even saw the apparition. I had that happen to me with something else. That's what Russell said to me. The both of us went through an experience like that, and you got to communicate it right in the book. You got to make the reader feel like they're going through it too.
Exactly.
Excuse me.
That's how it feels to me when I'm reading like a Stephen King story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there have been times where I've read books and I cried during the read
Mm-hmm.
because I felt what those people were feeling. Not just, not even Danielle Steele. Okay, let's go with a romance writer. She puts a lot of work into her books, but like you said, if she's not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And why would somebody write 100 books and try to appeal to these people if they're not using personal experiences or not able to convey feeling?
Mm-hmm. And when you have a paranormal experience, like I said, somehow you got to communicate how your spirit interacted in this thing, the feelings you get from the spirit. It's different from emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotions confuse you into thinking you're actually feeling something when actually it's the spirit sensing something. For example, there are times I could sense my mother looking at me. How do you communicate that in a way of feeling? I mean, how do you communicate a spirit feeling, making you feel something, or making you
choose your
something?
words wisely on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You have
because, as I said, the spirit is very foreign to most of us. We never pay any attention to it. We never spend time thinking about how to get in touch with our own spirit, the very fabric of your being. But you'd be surprised when you do, because if I didn't, I would never have been saved.
How do you suggest someone get in touch with their spirit? I mean, it's not like you're gonna, call them. I mean, maybe you
Yeah.
will. Maybe
Hello.
you'll.
How am I doing today?
Somebody, remember we were talking about someplace quiet? Shut out the world and the noise. Something that's really cool, those deprivation tanks. People lay in with water and shuts out the entire world. And they just lay there and they have all these imaginations and fantasies. Something similar to that, but the quieter you can make your being, the better chance you have of hearing that faint little voice that is your spirit.
So don't do this in an MRI machine.
Oh, good luck with that. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
All I can hear is the pounding.
Oh, I hated that
Right.
thing. I hated that thing.
Oh yeah.
I forgot what I was going to say about that.
Oh,
Also, when I it really helped me after I got saved. Life has a way of changing you. When you were a little person, you were somebody. By the time you got to be 30, you weren't that person anymore. You were somebody completely different.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to go back and rediscover and find that itty bitty little person you used to be, childlike person, the one that wasn't afraid or would trust very easily. Then you have a better chance of communicating with what is your spirit. That never changed. Your spirit never, ever changed, but you did.
It's the same as people saying you're not seeing what you're seeing, you're not hearing what you're hearing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
We are desensitized as we get older
Exactly.
to the things that relate to our spirit.
Right. If you go back and find that little person you were, the more pure person you were, that's a better chance you have. Boy, he's really tearing it up out there, isn't he?
Oh, isn't he though?
But that's my personal experience and my personal knowledge of it. I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody's going to go about it the same way and have success the same way. Like I said, life is designed to give you a whole bunch of trials and travails to get through because you need to be molded and made into something so that, you can seek the Father and find the Father. I mean, and find God. That's just one other way, in my
Right.
humble opinion. You should take it from a man that knows absolutely nothing what he's talking about.
So back to prior to that first book and being saved, you said you were hearing things, seeing things. What were some of the things that you were hearing and seeing?
When I was in first grade, I distinctly remember first grade in Catholic school. I was just a little dude. And I distinctly remember hearing voices that weren't in the room. And it's a room full of kids and my teacher up front. And the teacher's talking at the board. But I could hear other adult voices in the room. And it's just one adult and a whole bunch of little kids. But it was also at that time I started seeing images, bizarre images, things, animals and people being mutilated and stuff like that. And I didn't understand, you're just a little kid. You're not used to seeing these things. And I didn't understand why I was seeing them. That was the beginning of it. And you can see the rest of the book, but there was a progression to it. And I do suspect that, like I said, a lot of spirits like to follow family lines. And I inherited this from my family because my mother told me many, many years later. It's one of the things that preceded me writing the book. One of the last conversations I had with my mother back in 2001, 2, she started talking to me about occasions she had before I started Catholic school. I had to be at home with her. Everybody else was in school. They were old enough, but I was the youngest. So I spent my whole day with my mom while she did everything. And she would tell me stories about hearing voices out in the middle of the yard, putting up the laundry, not a soul in sight, but she would hear voices calling her name and speaking to her and seeing strange apparitions and shapes. She saw one of our local German shepherds that was kind of like a stray in the neighborhood actually change form from a dog to what looked like a human being and then transform back again. These things she told me much later in life. And it's one of the things that kind of pushed me into maybe I better start writing all this stuff out, you see. But I inherited, I believe, this tradition from my own family.
So do you feel like that was a generational curse or just?
Curses are different. Curses are a very decisive form of action that this is going to happen to you. The spirits don't necessarily have to work that way. They don't have to be directed. They'll do what they are going to do, direction or not. But as I said, some spirits follow family lines. I just probably just inherited the same spirits that were haunting my parents and my grandparents and great-grandparents before them. It was just simply my turn.
So,
now, if other siblings had anything weird happen to them, they never would tell me. I tell one story in the book about how we were all young teenagers, and we're all laying around. It's a warm night, and for a stretch of about a month, there was this hard banging on our front door, okay, in the middle of the night. And it was a droning boom, 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 continuously. Nobody ever got out of bed. I've got three brothers and two sisters and a mom and dad. Nobody ever once got out of bed to go see what was banging at the door. But I look over at my brother. He's awake, just laying there. And my parents never got out of bed. Everybody just was afraid to go to the door and see what the banging was. And I would like to point out that at our house, we had a big wooden front door, which was being banged on. And outside, like most folks, we have a storm door with a gas shock that opens, soft closes it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had to have opened the storm door to bang on that door. Okay. One night, I had enough. I got out of bed, ran downstairs, went through the dining room, was heading into the living room, and I was halfway to the door. The banging, the droning, and the banging was still going on. I was 7 feet away from it. Okay. My mom shows up behind me in the dining room and says, "Don't touch that door. Stay away from it." And I stopped dead in my tracks. It's dark in the house. I stopped dead in my tracks. The banging stops. You never heard the storm door close. The storm door never opened and never closed. And what my mother told us is that she had, and this is what she thinks, that she had a rosary draped over her mom's picture, or her mom's picture, who had passed away. And she didn't realize it, but it had fallen off the picture for the length of time that banging was going on. And she, that night, put it back over the picture again. It stopped. Never happened again. And of course, since then, the picture and the rosary, she didn't need anymore. She got rid of that. But that's a pretty good example of a whole family sharing a paranormal experience, and nobody wants to do anything because they're terrified to address it because they're afraid of what they're going to find on the other side of the door. My mom told us she had a dream just before all this started that her mom, who had a brain cancer, was operated on, and she was sitting in the rest home, essentially a vegetable because most of her brain was gone. Her cognitive skills were gone. She couldn't communicate with you. She had a dream that her mom showed up at the front door of our house in bandages. She was banging on the front door, and my mom opened the door, and there's her mom standing there with bandages on her head, saying, "Lorraine, help me, please help me." And that's what started the whole thing. That's what started the whole banging. That's what made her put the rosary beads over the picture. First place. Bless you. And somehow the rosary beads fell off, and that's how she explains the banging.
That it was a sign that she needed to fix it.
That's the supposition, yes, but there's no way to know for sure.
No, and there never will be, you know, because again, we're back to, we feel like this is the solution to the problem, or we feel that the problem was this, and now we've solved it because it stopped. But we, you know, without any scientific evidence, you just kind of have to go with that feeling at this point.
Well, the scientific evidence is it's not possible for somebody to bang on a front door if you don't first open the storm door. We all knew that. And hear that storm door from the second floor in my bedroom. You could hear it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Oh, I know. We could hear ours in our own house.
They were all spooked. Everybody was spooked out about it. That's why everybody was terrified to get out of the bed.
You know, the banging could have been coming from the inside of the door.
That occurred to me. And that would make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why in my next book, I'm actually getting into the actual construction of a haunting, not just that spirits haunt, but how they choose to haunt, how poltergeists choose or elect to present themselves to you, the things they do and why, because they can do about anything they please. Why choose like them?
Good job.
That book is The Spirit Field, and I'm still working on it.
That sounds like a good book.
And if you need any material, let me know.
It's going to be the only scientific, exhaustive examination of the paranormal, and I mean all the paranormal, that's ever been done. I've looked around, and nobody's done a scientific work on how the paranormal works. You turned your volume off there, kid.
So it will be kind of hard to get the scientific portion of that completed.
Well, we're talking about an X factor and spirit energy, because it's got to be an energy, because energy defined is a force that's in motion. And I think you can well agree that spirits and what they do, even the Sasquatch, because I consider that spirit, is something that exists and it's in motion. But it doesn't have physicality, at least not initially. So I have to treat it that way. It's actually an X factor. It is a force. It's in motion. I just need to know its composition and how it's affecting the physical world. You see, and this all moves into physics and all kinds of cool stuff. I am going to say something that's going to piss off the entire paranormal community, and I got to make this clear because I'm bombarded with this all the time, is that the majority of the paranormal community, I love you guys, but I've listened to you all talk, and the majority of you have no clue what electromagnetic fields are, what they do, and how they do it. Sorry.
That's true.
I agree.
Love you guys, but I don't think you have this one right.
So I had to just tell Ron what you said.
I heard,
My interpreter, great. This will be cool.
Oh, well, I'm pretty good at that part because I've spent years doing that at work, telling people what somebody else meant. So, so when you're talking about all this stuff, you've got lots of examples and experiences to pull from. Plus, not only that, what you've witnessed and all that. What is our biggest misconception when it comes to, say, cryptids? You said that Bigfoot's in motion. Could this be the reason why every picture is blurry?
No, the biggest misconception about all cryptids is they're living things. That assumption just comes right out of the gate, and then there's no physical evidence to support it. The fact that they can affect the physical world around them, you can make that argument if you only believe in that. However, as we have all well documented in the paranormal community over the decades, non-physical beings such as the spirits can affect the physical world. I'd like to cite the fact that spirits can, in certain circumstances, leave footprints, handprints, can move, and of course poltergeists can affect the physical world. So to tell me that cryptids can only be living physical beings doesn't really hold water.
No.
Which cryptid do you think would be the easiest to prove?
Really? Yeah, actually, the easiest one coming out of the gate is going to be the swamp creatures of the Florida Everglades and southern Arkansas, moving to Louisiana, because in another section of my book, one of the creepiest parts of whenever I speak live, one of the creepiest sections of one of the segments I do is missing people. Because according to the FBI, and I said this last night, by the way, on the other program, is that more than 1,500, now 1,600 people go missing in this country each and every day. Just simply go missing. And those are the ones reported missing. There's a lot of people out there go missing. Nobody gives a rat's hoot about. Nobody reports. Mm-hmm. Please take a minute to digest that. And people go missing for a variety of reasons. But some are found. Some are victims of crime. Others just simply lose their minds and decide to get as far away from everybody else, everything else as possible, and they go out into the wilderness and they're never seen again. The last chapter of my book, when I wrote the last chapter of the book and I was ready to go to print, my first book, excuse me, I was ready to go to print. I was living in Maine at the time, and I was ready to go to print, and then I put it back and I inserted some more segments because news was coming down off the Appalachian Trail nearby that hikers on the Appalachian Trail were being attacked by wild men. And these are just deranged men out in the wilderness, some clothed, some not, some wearing mossback, tattooed clothing, whatever. And they were attacking hikers on the Appalachian Trail. And so that's why I put that whole segment in there about missing people, because it also related to another segment I had in there about other wild men and examples, the nature of wild men, you see. And so there are people out there who are existing in nature and have been, I believe, altered, like my wild man, I believe, by powerful spiritual forces to exist as something they were not created as. They may have the appearance of being human, but altered. The Sasquatch has a humanoid form, but it's not human. But it's also not a bear. Powerful spiritual forces in Scripture are evident to alter the human condition and human form. Period. And so I can apply that same thing, that same methodology to current situations where powerful spiritual forces can actually alter a living being, be it a human being or even a dog, into appearing as or being as a grotesque creature.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
The swamp creatures could easily just be humans deranged that went to live in the swamps, became altered or altered themselves, and today they're not recognizable much as humans.
Like I said, there's, we have all kinds of stuff out there that people talk about all the time that gonna probably upset people. Make zero sense how this could be out there, and there's no bones, there's no hair, there's no physical proof of anything, of Bigfoot.
Luxury.
Yeah, I know I'm picky like that. I like some facts. I'm sorry, but let's go to aliens. What is your belief about aliens? Because I've said it a million times, if I haven't said it more, that I know that we are not the only intelligent species out there. There has got to be others.
I'm completely sure we're intelligent.
Yeah, see, that's why.
Yeah, I'm not completely convinced we're intelligent. There's what I believe, and there's the facts. And what I believe is that these are angelics. Jesus said himself, "Be ye not amazed, because even Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light." People forget that Satan's original job was Lucifer. He sat at the right hand of God, and he was his chief angel, and he was the most beautiful angel. The Lord, when he made his first angel, wanted to make the Cadillac of all angels. That was Lucifer. So it's not unlikely to think he couldn't be made into something gorgeous and easy to look at. So goes for the other spirit apparitions. They can be made into things that are easy to behold, but also, is it a stretch to think that they can't also impersonate living and non-living things, such as machinery? Okay, we're getting shuffled around here.
No, it was just I was too fast with the button while handing water. So I get that, and yeah, Virgil or Mark, I believe that something is real. Are they aliens? Are we just all in the same Earth, different dimensions? Whatever it is, there's something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that how do we explain abductions if these are angels? Are angels abducting people, or are they just getting into their minds and making them believe that they were abducted?
Please bear in mind the word angel is a Hebrew word that simply means messenger. That's all it means. And that means it's here for a purpose. It was sent here either by Satan or by the Lord for a purpose, a specific task. And their specific task is to deceive. That's it, in a nutshell. And as I said, they can appear in some manner that they choose. And some of these angelics can obviously choose to appear as non-living things, such as machines or lights in the sky. Given the physical nature of how they operate, you have to admit, watching all the videos, that they exhibit characteristics that are not physically possible in a three-dimensional universe. They have a capability that may seem far and away more advanced than our physical capabilities, but they're also performing feats that are not physically possible in our universe. It's not physically possible for something to just simply vanish. Just physically vanish and not be there anymore. Yet time and time again, UFOs have done this. Aliens have done this. Sasquatch has been reported to do this.
Yeah, my keys do that.
I'm starting to understand how. Yes.
What, get lost all the time?
Yep.
Yep.
But
Carelessness.
what I do know is that this is also exactly what entities we consider paranormal are capable of: appearing and disappearing, physically appearing and physically disappearing. So I have evidence on one side, I believe, to equate a UFO and watching its characteristics, equate that to what we know a spirit apparition can do, or go the scientific analysis and know that I do not have the ability to explain that.
Have you ever seen an alien or what you believe is an alien?
No. Any being. I've only seen the apparitions of the lights in the sky, and in the book I do detail that last experience I had when I was living in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, of the one that just kind of slowly lifted up out of Booth Bay Harbor and drifted about 15 or 20 feet over my head and just vanished right in front of me. It looked, acted, and behaved like what normally we would consider a spirit apparition to do. However, it was a ball of light giving off little sparks. I could even hear it fizzing. It was not, I swear to you, 15, 20 feet above my head. My wife was right behind me staring at it. And it just, right in front of me, just wasn't there anymore. There's nothing in physics that can explain that.
I agree. I mean, like I said, I have a better shot of believing that aliens exist and that Bigfoot is a possibly of another dimension and just comes and goes, as opposed to being physically there.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people run to the dimension talk pretty quick, and again, I got to make a lot of people angry at me, but like I said last night, since Albert Einstein proposed the idea of dimensions and time and the relationships between the two more than 100 years ago, to this date, it still remains on paper. Nobody's physically proven the existence of alternative dimensions.
Right. And like I said, I have no clue. All I know is that I've been telling people since I was 7 years old that Bigfoot was an alien. Did I know that? No, but from 1972 to today, I still think that, if Bigfoot is real, he's not of this world.
I think there is a video on YouTube of Bigfoot coming across the southern border. You might be right.
So
he's an alien.
Well, we've got a little bit of time left. I want you, Frank, to be able to tell people where they can find your books and what you've got coming up.
Next weekend, I will be in Knoxville, Tennessee for CreepyCon, and you can find that online. I will be doing my very popular panel, It's All Paranormal to Me, there. And come on out and see me if you're in the area. Please. It's a pretty cool show, devoted primarily to all things horror and haunted houses and things like that. And there will be some celebrities there, too. Not me. I'm not a celebrity.
Okay.
Ron's doing that really cool thing where he just one place.
Well, Ron asked me what I was
got me
doing.
muted, and I can't reach the mouse.
Why? Nolan put these fun little eggs that light up in the dog crate, and the dog was just sitting there looking at it.
There's an alien right here. If you,
oh my God!
You want to see what one looks like? Right here.
Nolan.
So,
hey, Nolan. How are you?
So, needless to say, the light up eggs were causing problems for the Yorkies. So,
I'm an alien.
I'm from Ohio.
Yeah.
So, over the place, just type my full name into Google, Frank J. Bennett, And as I tell most folks, please remember to put the J in the middle, because if you don't, you get some creepy lounge singer over in Las Vegas.
Well, I always put the J. You know, 'cause
J's J.
we
Oh,
need
and
to
by the
have
way,
an FJB.
in 2 weeks, I also return to Baltimore, Timonium, Maryland, for the Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Con again. It's a very popular show. I do very well there. It's only about 6 miles from where most of the things I write about in the book take place at. So I'm really hot about that. It's the last show of the year for me, and it's going to be awesome. There are going to be celebrities there too, not me.
Are there has been celebrities?
Oh Lord.
I'm kidding.
But yeah,
So did you say where you could find your books?
Yes, I did, on Amazon.
Okay, I couldn't. I was digging through the dog kennel. So
right.
Yeah.
and I recommend you guys go out there and check out his books. I have copies of 3 of them, and I really
Copy.
yeah, they were stolen from the
What?
library.
Send you a copy of a book. You better let me know which one I'm supposed to send you. I
have the Aberdeen Wildman that I bought from you when I first met you, and then I have the one you wrote with Don Wells as your inspiration, and the Ghost in Philadelphia.
Since then, I published another book called Questions for God.
I
And
remember that.
my most recent book. And essentially, I decided to sit down and take maybe the top 60, 70 questions I always receive as a Bible teacher from people, and just codify them in a question answer format according to category. For example, what happened to the Ark of the Covenant? Why do bad things happen to good people? And things like that. I just question answer format.
Yeah. The why do good things or bad things happen to good people could actually be about this thick. In fact, I just donated a book called that. So, I think I need that book right now.
The majority of the shows
Right.
I do, our conversations do go in that direction. And a lot of folks who have had paranormal experiences have been so badly shaken by the experience they've had. I mean, shaken. They come across a guy like me and they become very emotional and start asking why, and they're afraid it's coming back, don't know how to get rid of it, all those cool things. And I cover those things in the book too. And, you'll find that on Amazon.
Right. But okay, I guess Frank, I want to thank you for being on Paranormal Nation Radio tonight. You're always welcome here and everything. And everybody in our chat room, thank you for all the questions and comments and everything coming in. The same on Rumble over here. And we also want to thank Things Network, where we're live at, over on their Facebook page, and also on Temple of Phoenix Rising Entertainment page, and Japan Paranormal, where we're live over in Japan. So everybody thank that. Check out the shows on the Billerites Network here in about 6-7 minutes. Conservative View with Barbara Phoenix and KD Sims will be on.
Man. Really? Damamora Gato, Mr. Roboto.
And stuff. So check all them shows out, and we'll see you next week here on Paranormal Nation Radio. Okay, Denise.
Hey guys, just remember to check out the Paranormal Pride on Mondays at 7 p.m. Central right here on Bill of Rights Network, and also on the Paranormal Pride Facebook page, the Denise Pride Moore LinkedIn page, and on Rumble on the Bill of Born TV. So check those out. And if you guys have any topics you want me to cover, please let me know, and I'll do the homework and I'll get you the information that you're looking for. So you guys have a great night.
We'll see you next week.
Where are we going?